and a lot has changed. It hasn't rained, it's been very hot, and a lot of plants are suffering. I have to water quite a few things, and been watering this watermelon a little bit, and I got watermelons growing, so that's good. And here is my volunteer squash mess, and here's something, a pumpkin squash hybrid of some sort. And there's tomatoes in this the volunteer squash group. Where is that one? Oh, where are you? Oh, there you are. There's a tomato growing on one of those. And here is the butternut squash. They're probably about done growing, so I'll cut them and take them inside pretty soon. And here are what's left of my potatoes. There's 6 hills left. I have harvested the others, and I'll do these tomorrow morning if it don't rain, which it probably won't rain. And sweet potatoes, they're looking pretty good as of now. They like hot weather, but I don't know how much dry weather they'll be able to take, because it doesn't look very good for rain. And here is the pineapple tomatoes. There's 6 of them, and the tomatoes on them are getting rather large. So those are looking good. They look very healthy. They need water. This one over here, this one's very big, very nice looking. And here is my another little tomato row of volunteer tomatoes I dug up and brought down. The rabbits have been having a little fun with them. They would eat the foliage but kick out the tomatoes, so they leave the tomatoes, very small tomatoes. And here's a squash that was in that tomato replanting, and it's got a nice squash on it. Here is a Big Zack tomato plant, and there's some Big Zack's tomatoes on it, that's for sure. And here's another little row of those volunteer tomatoes, and another big row. This row really looks ideal. It's loaded with tomatoes, good chili, good to put in the food processor, grind up, and put them in the chili. Volunteer squash here in between. They're look like they want some water pretty soon. Here are some giant Marconi peppers. They like hot, dry weather, or they can tolerate it. And there's a lot on that plant. This plant's got a good number. And I'm waiting for these to turn red. Nana wants red Marconi, probably next week. And here's my second corn. And I'm gonna pick what's ready tonight. I know this one's ready. I can see the husk are starting to show a little dryness. And that's kind of a sign. This one here's got, there's 3, yeah. 3 plants, 3 seeds I planted, and there's, I don't know what, this one might not do much, but there's 6 ears on it, which is very good. These are looking good. Look at those here. Those Those look really nice. So they're gonna be a pile of corn tonight. Take in. This has been doing good in the heat and dry. I don't see any wilting on it, so I'm gonna get by without watering it because it's gonna be these ears will be most all of them picked by next week, and I'll cut down the corn and let some of these squash, if they want to, climb all over that ground. And without water, they probably won't do much. I'm going to come over here to these. Here's more squash, pumpkin crosses. There's one, and there's one. There's one. There's a good number here, and here's another tomato I transplanted. A volunteer. It's the worst of the several groups I brought out and put posts around. And there's a pumpkin. And this one, the vine died. I'm gonna take that in today because there's nothing going into the fruit, so it's done. It'll ripen, make a little jack-o'-lantern. Well, it's been hot and dry, and this pumpkin didn't make it. There's a nice little one there. Another little group of, there's tomatoes finally on this little group of volunteer tomatoes. Here's my lettuce. It's going to seed. Some of it's starting to bloom. I'll maybe get some seed off of it. I don't know, without rain, what these other small plants. So they look okay right now. And here's another one of those caged with volunteer tomatoes. And there's some pretty good, there's a good sized one there. And it's 6 foot tall. So those are looking fine. White onions. Here's probably the biggest one right on the end of the row. The tops are starting to tip over. That means that they're about ready to need harvesting. I've watered them a little bit the last 2 days with water. I've been cleaning the potatoes off. I clean the potatoes, scrub them, and the water from that I've been bringing down to things that may need a little, and these onions are getting a little. And just to kind of make sure there's a little moisture there if it needs it. Okay. And I'll check this. That's fine. I've been having a few rotten tomatoes, probably because it's so hot, and one little flaw or one little poke, and it lets in a lot of stuff that'll make a tomato rot. So I've got a couple today that have been rotting, and I clean them up and take what's good, and I'll freeze the rest of the tomato, and then I'll use that in chili also. Here's cabbage. There's a couple on this hill. They need to grow a little bit more. This one's probably I could cut. This one is nice and solid. It might not grow much anymore. There's 2 in this hill. This one I should definitely cut. Well, that one's getting a solid head, good. A volunteer tomato that wasn't moved. It looks good. And here's a cabbage that I already harvested, and it's growing these little small heads that, I mean, if they get big enough, I can use them. Here's some more bigger cabbages. This one here was the smallest plant when I transplanted. It's pretty much the biggest cabbage, so you never know what you're gonna get. And here's the rest of the beefsteak tomatoes. I'm gonna get a lot over the next 2 weeks. You can see the cracks in the ground. It's been dry. The tomatoes are pretty tough for heat and drought. They must be sending their roots down there several feet, because in the midday I don't see really any wilting, and they're just having a good time growing and ripening. So those are okay right now. Here is what used to be potatoes. I finished digging 6 hills this morning. Got a pretty good crop, I'll show later. And here are the turkey craw beans. I picked them last night, got maybe a gallon. Here's a couple I missed. They should be picked when I get a chance here. And my water collection is getting smaller. I'm down to, I'm probably maybe got 50 gallons in these trash can and barrel, and I think I counted 27 gallons jugs full. So we're dwindling down. Cantaloupe, where was that little one? There's probably bigger ones than that. Here's a little cantaloupe. I've been watering that a little bit. I think I watered it the day before yesterday in the evening, but yesterday it was certainly wilting. So I know it's had water, but it's wilting anyway. And here's a cabbage from a 3-year-old cabbage plant, and if I water it, it might make a small cabbage of a plant that's been there for 3 years. And here's some volunteer tomatoes. This early one is really putting on the tomatoes. Well, that looks better than yesterday. This little squash, I don't know what the issue with it is. The leaves are really look sick. Some of my squash and things have been just like totally collapsing, and this one looks better than yesterday, and it's got a little squash on it, so it might pan out a little bit. And those are about ready. Some nightshade berries are edible, and I'll pick them pretty soon. Here's a volunteer tomato out of this. I think it came, no, it wasn't in the, I brought compost down and stuff came growing out of it. So this is, the tomato was, well, look at this. It's got one. Got a tomato. And my acorn squash, the heat and dry has been really put a number on it. It's not doing that well. I think I'll gotta watch for these vines dying. I think there's a bitty one down there that needs to be cut or taken out because the vine's dead, but it's probably not really that edible. Well, these need to be, these are probably, ooh, you're not rotting. Here is an onion from last, this was my onion roll last year, and an onion came up in the spring, and I left it, and it's got a few onions on it to harvest. And it looks like they need to come out today. Volunteer tomato. Here's some more nightshades. That they say it's gonna rain, but I don't know. And here's another volunteer tomato at the end of this garden, this half of the garden. Okay, here are some Cherokee purple tomatoes, and they're looking pretty good. This plant is like one branch is really sick. It's like I've seen this happen other times. One branch or even the whole plant will collapse, and it's just something. I don't know if it's just something with the branch itself, or disease, something. I don't know. And here is the pretty nice looking. These are bush Goliaths. They're not very Goliath. They're not. They're okay sized. I'll probably start watering these plants here within next week or so. And here, oh, that's a big Zac, another big Zac, with a big Zac tomato. I got a little flat Dutch cabbage. This is plants from last year, and this one has definitely got a head on it, so it's had cabbage on it for 2 years in a row. Okay, this is that Brandywine that was the last one to put tomatoes. It's got 4. The foliage looks good on all these tomatoes here. These look healthy and not too drought stressed yet, but might have to water it to make sure that new tomatoes will come on it. That's another Brandywine. That's the Mr. Stripey that I think I picked a bunch of tomatoes off of it. There's not many left at this point. Yep, this Brandywine's got 4 good-sized tomatoes, and this, oh, another Mr. Stripe. This one looks good compared to the other one. Lots of tomatoes, pretty good sized. Things grow right up here at the end of the concrete tend to really grow well. I think it gets the most water, and I think it may be sending roots under the concrete to get nutrition and water. So they're doing fine. Okay, here was my corn row, and it's got a volunteer tomato, some squash, and more. There's a little marigold. That's probably one of the neighbor's marigolds from last year. Little nightshade. Oh, there's some berries, and there's some squash here. This was the corn row where it had volunteer squash and stuff in it, and I'm just gonna let it grow. And here's some big sunflowers. Something's wrong with these heads. They're not opening properly. I don't know if it's being dry and hot or what, but the plants look moisture starved. I don't know what's going on there. It's not that important, but the sunflowers ain't. These down here at the end look better. Probably that tallest one's 10.5 foot tall. And the reason I'm not concerned about moisture, these little ones down here look normal. Their heads look normal. They're blooming, and they don't look like they need much water. That short sunflower there, it was the stem was damaged, and I tied it to this other sunflower, and I thought, well, it's going to die because it was really wilting the other day, and it looks a lot better now. So this kind of telling me we're not having much of a moisture issue on these giant sunflowers. It may be more of a heat issue with these heads, sunflower heads, not really looking that good. Okay. I'll go look at this other sunflower. This one here looks more like it should. Nice head. The leaves look really good. This one came up a volunteer. This one, I had sunflowers in this area last year. One of the stalks just busted randomly without wind. Probably the weight of the head and a flaw in the stem. And seeds went all over, and this is probably one of the seeds from that sunflower head. That one looks very typical. So I don't feel sorry for those sunflowers that are not doing very good. Here's a volunteer marigold in the chicken manure pile next to it. Okay, here's my buckets of tomatoes, 13 of them. I dug these out of the corn row, more or less, and I plant them in planters with the chicken manure and a little potting soil, and they're looking pretty good. I gotta water them every day. I think these take a couple gallons a day to keep going. This one here's got a tomato on it, so there might be I keep on watering them, and maybe if it rains even, they'll put on a lot of tomatoes. They look really healthy. They look like they're nutrition-wise, they look like they're getting what they need. They should, because there was a lot of fertilizer in these. And the pigeon grass loves growing and stuff. More nightshade that I left in this onion. This was the old sweet onion row, and I put corn in between these other volunteer things. And the corn, this is the fourth planting of corn, and it's getting pretty good and tall. It could use a little bit. I water it every day. I put a little water on it. That down here, I can tell it needs more sunlight because it's a little spindlier. This corn here shades it in the afternoon. The sunflowers here shade. I can't do much about it for a while, if at all. This corn, well, so is the corn. That corn behind me over there, that may be out in a couple weeks. And this will be waist high by then, and it'll get a little more sun. Volunteer tomato. Here's some volunteer squash. This is where I got some. I had in the train. I have this barrier here at the end of this part of the garden that dams up water. And right here, the water went under these boards, and I plugged this hole here with some chicken manure that had pumpkin seeds in it. And here's some pumpkins growing where I dammed up and we've had a lot of rains after that, and the dam is holding. Water can come running down this upper garden, and it'll dam here, and it'll pretty much distribute over this lower garden fairly evenly without much help. And that's what I have a good system going. And if we ever get some rain again and get that driveway will shed like 5-7 times the amount of water that rains. So I can get a lot of water in this garden if it does rain. Here is my third planting of corn. It is pollinating. I'll hit this here and see You see the pollen fly. I pan pollinated this morning to make sure it got pollinated. Here's some bees. Look, that one's loaded. That one's got his saddlebags full of pollen. He needs to go home and unload. So this corn, this end of the patch really looks normal. It looks good. There may be 2 ears on some of it, which is ideal. And this is not the best lit area of the garden because of this building behind here. But this year, it really looks good on this end. But up here, these stalks are a lot shorter. And I can't really figure out why. It's had plenty of moisture. I've been watering. I watered it this morning with wastewater from scrubbing the potatoes. And it's shorter, but we are getting silks on this. This has 2 of 4, and this one here has 3 of 4. Shake that down. I don't know where that's going. And I'm happy that we're getting silks and pollen. And I was concerned that it would pollinate and the silks wouldn't come out, because I've seen other years where that would happen, where the silks wouldn't come out when the tassels are pollinating, and then you don't end up with any corn. But there's going to be at least some small ears on that short corn. And I think the most probable thing, the reason why, is this squash over here these squash here were growing before the corn was planted, and it may have sent out roots sideways under the corn row, and it's taken nutrition away. It's not a water issue, it was a nutrition issue, and it looks like corn that doesn't have enough nitrogen. But I did put some nitrogen around it with chicken manure. It's probably helped it some, but it was the die was cast, and it didn't get the optimal amount of. It's going to be fine. We're going to have a pile of corn off of these 2 rows. I think like 71 seeds. Probably there might be a half dozen that might not do much. Plants, corn plants. Well, there's a tomato here's a dry rot. Ooh, that looks like a bird had breakfast on it. Looks like it was picked, so I haven't seen much of that. That's something you can't do much about. Usually they will pick the ripe ones. Unless that's a worm, I'm gonna have to spray for worms later today if I can remember to do so. Here is that first bush Goliath I planted. This thing was in about a foot high when I planted it. We got 8. I think I picked 8 tomatoes off of it, and they were really good. Nana loved them, and now it's got about 8 more again, of about the same size. So we're gonna have a repeat on that. I'm very happy with it. These tops look good. And that might be it might keep running. And then there's small tomatoes too. And this one might produce a lot this year. So, and here is a bucket tomato. The leaves. This is oh, I see this. This one's regrowing. Where's that? Is that stem? That's from here. The stem started here. It's regrowing. And I don't know what's going on. It last maybe 2 years, it would produce good, and then the foliage will die back. But this is kind of growing again. It probably won't do much, but it's not. I don't know. It's lacking something in the soil, I assume. Okay, those have been harvested and squash out of the toilet tank. And this one here may produce later, but this heat is not helping. Pineapples, they haven't changed. Okay, here is the potatoes I dug this morning. I dug 6 hills. They're Yukon Gold with a hill of the red potatoes. I think these are Pontiacs, and pretty good pile of tomato or potatoes. I've been digging every morning at like dawn before the heat, and tomorrow's the last day for the potatoes being dug. Here's a squash coming in between the wickets. It bloomed this morning. I forgot to pollinate it. It probably doesn't matter. There's a pumpkin in through there. There's a pumpkin. There's one that's ripe. I'm gonna cut it here shortly and take in the house. This squash here just like died. It was healthy like this vine yesterday morning, and yesterday it tanked for whatever reason. These seem to be getting a relative amount moisture needed, because those plants going through there are healthy looking and crawling. So disease, I don't know. Competition, and it looks like that vine is going to be dead. And here's a couple planters with assortment of. Hey, is there a cantaloupe here? Where was that cantaloupe? Oh. Did you take off? I thought there was a cantaloupe there. Well, maybe it's this other one. Okay, here's this other one. This one's definitely it's got a bitty watermelon. It probably won't. Maybe the cantaloupe was over here. Oh well. So much for that. Okay, this is my best looking volunteer tomato batch the ones I put the posts around. It's well over 6 foot tall, I think. Lots of tomatoes. I've been harvesting off of it. These are decent size right in here. What's wrong with you? Oh, we got dry rot. I might have to salvage that one. Okay. Here's another group of squash. It's got an internet issue, and I scared everybody off. What am I? I'm gonna shut the Wi-Fi off real quick and come back. Okay, let's see if we can get this stream done. Okay, this is a interesting looking little squash. Here's a small one. These plants aren't, kind of a disappointment on this hill here. It might be because I've been growing squash there other years and it's run out of the right nutrients. I don't know. And this plant here, it's come out from there and it's going around to here, and it doesn't have a squash on it. I don't know what it's doing. Oh, that's got tomatoes. Ooh, that needs to be harvested too. I need to harvest that. Like an acorn squash. Here's a little volunteer tomato in there. And here is what they call a husk tomato. And I didn't plant it. It probably came in, the birds came in here and pooped out a seed. I've been putting a little water on it from that jug I want to see how it turns out. And it looks, I thought it was a pepper at first. Then I thought it was a nightshade, but it's a husk tomato. And they're in the same like family of plants. Peppers, tomatoes, several things are related. Okay, this is a bigger, more established pumpkin patch. There's a nice one down in there. And it's kind of crawling the fence. This one here, this has a sick vine on it. This one, I thought the vine was gonna die, but it's hanging in there. I'd like to get this one to where it does get ripened. So I'll just have a little bit of a pumpkin. And here is a full, this one's coming in today. A very nice jack-o'-lantern type pumpkin. It's got, June? It's got probably 5 months to be stored. Hope it doesn't have a flaw in it and where it rots. And at least I have one good one. Where is that? I know we were here somewhere. Right up. Okay. I can't find it. Maybe it's right there. There's that acorn. There's an acorn squash there, just making sure. I might have to just cut it pretty soon too. And there's more squash here. Plants look okay, but they're not like sprawling like I've seen last year. They need some rain. Okay, I'm done for this week. Jim Miller's Garden. Thanks for watching. Probably something next week. Well, I forgot to look at those tomatoes over there, but they're just more tomatoes in cages. So, all right, I'm done for the week. Thanks for watching.